There is a small, steady light that arrives in the hush before words. It does not demand attention, but it invites presence, and that invitation is its quiet power. In one brief breath, a memory, a warmth, or a small kindness appears, and the heart remembers how to open. You might feel it like the warmth of sunlight on a closed hand, simple, honest, and immediate. This is the original pulse of gratitude, the spark that asks only to be noticed. Hold that noticing gently. Let it anchor the moment rather than trying to hold it tightly. When attention rests there, something measured and expansive begins to form. That opening will guide the rest of this practice toward clarity and joy. Often, the most potent fuel arrives disguised as little things: a held cup, a remembered laugh, the steadiness of breath. Those small gifts do not shout, they steady, and their steadiness grows quietly into momentum. Allow a simple scene from the day to expand into full awareness, seeing how the ordinary becomes luminous under gentle attention. You are learning the language of subtlety, where small acts and small joys seed resilience. Gratitude is less a grand motion than a steady folding of appreciation into everyday life. When practiced, these tiny acknowledgments form a lattice that supports larger turning points. This is how a quiet spark can become an enduring flame for intention and action. The next frame deepens that recognition into deliberate practice. Choose one simple anchor, a breath, a sound, the light on a wall, and let it root the gratitude that has arisen. An anchor keeps the heart from being swept away by rushing thoughts and brings attention to the present field where change actually happens. As attention rests, the body remembers how to be steady, and the mind learns to soften its demands. This steadiness is not a pause of avoidance, but a readiness to receive what is true and useful in each moment. Practice this with gentle curiosity rather than force, allowing gratitude to be a companion rather than a task. The anchor becomes a habitual gateway back to perspective whenever life grows loud. In that quiet repetition, the spark becomes a reliable source of fuel that informs choices and behavior. That fuel will next be explored as an energy to recognize and cultivate. As attention rests on the anchor, the original spark widens into a field of noticing that includes small kindnesses and simple beauty. This widening changes the shape of perception, turning scarcity into a horizon of open possibilities. Gratitude here performs quietly. It rearranges what is seen so that resources appear where they once were obscured. You begin to perceive support even in unfamiliar places, and the sense of isolation softens. The spark that was once small now feeds a gentler, more expansive state of being that supports action. Let this widening be a tender process, not a rush toward perfection. The next chapter will name how that inner fuel becomes a recognized source of motivation and clarity. There is a way gratitude moves like a current beneath ordinary days, unseen until attention reveals it. Once noticed, the current can be followed and used to navigate choices with less friction. You might recognize it in the extra warmth for a friend's voice or in a sudden clarity about what matters. That gentle energy reduces the weight of doubt and opens pathways that felt blocked before. Let the feeling be treated as data rather than drama. Observe its texture, intensity, and direction. Doing so creates a map of internal resources that can be used intentionally. This recognition transforms gratitude from passive experience into an available and practical force for action. Try naming 3 things that sustain: a habit, a person, a small pleasure, and notice how the list changes the rhythm of thought. Names give structure to appreciation. They make the unseen tangible and usable. Use simple language: steady breath, morning light, a steady friend. Each named element becomes an anchor point that can be revisited when uncertainty arrives. The act of naming also clarifies priorities and helps align actions with what truly matters. This is practical gratitude, a deliberate catalog of fuel sources to draw upon. When the inner map is clearer, decisions settle with greater ease and integrity. Momentum born of gratitude is gentle rather than forceful, but it accumulates with repetition and attention. Notice how small, consistent acknowledgments create shifts in behavior and perception over days and weeks. The measure of progress need not be dramatic. Subtle increases in calm, concentration, or generosity are meaningful signs of forward movement. Keep observations simple, like tracking the warmth that lingers after an intentional moment, rather than complex metrics. This quiet accumulation strengthens confidence and resilience in the face of setbacks. In time, the habit of drawing on gratitude becomes as natural as reaching for breath. That steady momentum prepares the ground for moving gratitude into purposeful action. With recognition and naming comes the option to choose how to use this fuel, to amplify stress or to channel it toward creative energy. Choose the latter with gentle discernment. Let gratitude guide priorities and soften urgency. This choice requires a quiet courage to slow down and act with intention rather than react with noise. The energy becomes graceful when it aligns with values and the practical tasks of life. Use it to illuminate small steps rather than to conjure dramatic transformations overnight. This measured use preserves sustainability and prevents burnout. The following chapter will explore how gratitude in motion reshapes daily practice and influence. Turn small acknowledgments into daily acts so that gratitude becomes woven into the fabric of living. A simple ritual, a morning inhale, a quiet note of thanks, a mindful cup informs the day with calm intention. Ritual does not need ceremony. It only needs consistency and presence to be transformative. You will notice choices changing, not because of force, but due to a steadier baseline of appreciation. Over time, rituals become reliable scaffolding that supports growth and creative focus. The potency of these acts lies in repetition, not intensity, and their effect compounds. As rituals settle in, they begin to influence relationships and work with subtle, steady force. Every small expression of gratitude sends ripples through the immediate surroundings, altering tone and opening possibilities. A sincere thank you can quiet tension. A noticed effort can encourage further generosity. Observe how these ripples return in unexpected forms, in renewed cooperation, clearer communication, or a softer self-view. Gratitude is not a transaction, but a gentle catalyst that reshapes dynamics over time. Keep attention on the subtle returns rather than on immediate validation. The real shifts are often quiet and cumulative. This is how influence grows without force, through repeated small waves that shift the field. Those waves then become the groundwork for facing harder days with steadiness. When gratitude is practiced, it clarifies what deserves energy and what can be set down. Use the warmth it creates to fuel purposeful action, choosing tasks that align with deeper values rather than fleeting impulses. That clarity simplifies decisions and conserves attention for what matters most. Let gratitude be the compass that helps prioritize commitments and protect boundaries from needless distraction. The energy it provides tends to be steady and sustainable, ideal for long-term projects and compassionate leadership. Through consistent practice, actions become expressions of inner alignment rather than external performance. This alignment readies the spirit to withstand challenge with equanimity. Stewardship of this inner fuel requires attention to pacing and rest, balancing giving with recovery. Gratitude provides momentum, but not inexhaustible energy. Recognizing limits is a form of wisdom aligned with gratitude itself. Tend to the sources, solicit rest, nourish the body, and tend relationships with care. When stewardship is practiced, momentum becomes resilient and creative rather than brittle. The capacity to keep giving and creating grows from such thoughtful maintenance. This is how sustained influence and meaningful work are nurtured over years rather than burned out in months. In the next chapter, gratitude will be applied to the darker moments where resilience is most required. Acknowledgement is the first courageous step when difficulty arrives. It is not surrender, but clarity. Name the discomfort without adding unnecessary story, allowing the facts of the moment to be seen plainly. That clarity makes room for a different response than automatic reactivity. Gratitude does not deny pain. It locates small embers of support and meaning that exist even amid hardship. You can hold both truth and tenderness at once, seeing difficulty and noticing what sustains in that context. This balanced gaze reduces overwhelm and preserves agency for wise action. In that held space, resilience begins to form like a quiet, steady root. Search gently for a single point of light, a memory, a small success, a person who cares, and let it be enough for this moment. That chosen point need not solve everything. It only needs to offer a foothold. Gratitude for this small light creates a safe corridor through which steady action and clearer thought can pass. This practice is not about forcing positivity, but about finding practical resources to support movement. Holding that light softens the edges of fear and expands capacity to respond rather than withdraw. With enough small lights assembled, a dependable path becomes visible even in dim conditions. The next scene will show how those assembled lights turn into an inner toolkit for resilience. Turn those small lights into tools, a repeated breath, a remembered kindness, or a steady routine that grounds the day. Treat these tools as practical resources to be accessed when the mind becomes stormy or the body fatigued. The usefulness of such tools is in their availability and simplicity, not their grandeur. Use them to regulate attention, restore perspective, and support a return to steady work or compassionate presence. Over time, a personal toolkit reduces the energy spent on crisis management and increases capacity for creative problem solving. The tools become a quiet source of confidence that strengthens action under pressure. This trained presence will then support compassionate outreach and decisive choices. From steady presence and inner tools, compassionate responses naturally emerge, which are both practical and healing. Compassion does not rush to fix, but offers clarity, boundaries, and persistent care where needed. Gratitude supports this posture by reminding that even in struggle, there is shared humanity and potential for growth. Responding with kindness preserves relationships and reduces the risk of reactive harm. This kind of action is resilient because it is rooted in humility and sustained attention rather than episodic effort. Through such responses, challenges are met with dignity and constructive change becomes possible. The final chapter will gather these practices into a forward-moving life that is consistently fueled by gratitude. When gratitude becomes habitual, it provides sustained direction rather than momentary uplift. Life gains a subtle compass that nudges choices toward meaning and away from distraction. This direction is gentle and persistent, a soft insistence that shapes long-term habits and relationships. You will notice priorities aligning with deeper values because the inner fuel favors what nourishes rather than what merely entertains. Over time, this alignment reduces wasted effort and creates more room for creativity and joy. The steady direction becomes a lifeline during ordinary and extraordinary days alike. With such a compass, energy flows into projects and people that matter most. Use gratitude as a seedbed for generative growth, where small practices expand into systems of care and creativity. Plant simple intentions and tend them with consistency, watering through reflection and patient action. Growth here is less about rapid gain and more about sustainable flourishing that benefits the self and others. Notice how generosity and appreciation reciprocate, creating an ecosystem of support. This is the practical side of joy, ongoing cultivation that reshapes priorities and everyday structures. Let the work be steady and humble, recognizing that meaningful outcomes accumulate slowly. These small investments compound into a life oriented by purpose and presence. A life shaped by gratitude leaves a legacy not of grand trophies, but of quiet strength and steady influence. That legacy is visible in relationships, in the habits passed quietly to others, and in the durability of compassionate choices. You contribute to a culture of resilience simply by practicing steadiness and noticing what supports growth. Legacy formed this way outlasts flash successes because it is embedded in daily actions and consistent care. Such influence ripples outward through communities and future possibilities. Recognizing this invites a long view that informs present decisions with humility and hope. Carry this principle forward. Gratitude is renewable fuel when tended with awareness, naming, ritual, and stewardship. It offers clarity to choose, humility to rest, and courage to act with care. The path ahead is not free from difficulty, but it is banked with inner resources that support steady movement. Treat gratitude as a daily companion, a quiet engine that powers intention, relationships, and meaningful work. Let its presence be felt in small gestures and large commitments alike, shaping a life that moves with purpose and warmth. In the quiet, after this listening, breathe and notice one small thing to carry into the day.